How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the alpha release of Klei's newest game called Oxygen Not Included. Now, for those of you who are interested in getting involved in the alpha version of the game yourself, you're going to actually have to click on a specific little widget that Klei has made available for people who are interested in purchasing the game. I will be linking to it in the description below, as you will not be able to purchase the game from the Steam store page. So anyway, with that out of the way, welcome to Oxygen Not Included. This game is in the early stages of development, which means you are likely to encounter strange, amusing, and occasionally just downright frustrating bugs. During this time, Oxygen Not Included will be receiving regular updates to fix bugs, add features, and introduce additional content. So if you encounter issues or just have suggestions to share, please let us know on our forums. We value your feedback and thank you for joining us in the development process. We couldn't do this without you. Enjoy your time in deep space. Okay, so without disclaimer out of the way, I wanted to make it perfectly clear that this version of the game, the build that I'm playing right now, is not the final version. It is a very early release one. So here we have, things likely will change as the game is further developed. I have a fair amount of confidence in Klei because they have done a fairly good job with their other games. I know some of the more veteran players will complain that there exist bugs, but believe me, those bugs are experienced by the very fringe of players who play the game. As you can see, our typical options, we can actually do temperature units now, so we have a choice between Celsius, Kelvin, and Fahrenheit. I'm sure that will be appreciated. I know I kind of appreciate it because I'm somebody who grew up using Fahrenheit, and Celsius is a little strange to me, but at the same time, I kind of welcome that because it gives me an opportunity to actually familiarize myself with another unit of measurement, which I think is actually useful, being able to grow in that regard. But it's nice that they included those options with that. Audio, pretty standard. Graphics is something that I haven't looked into before, but apparently running at 59 hertz is the best we can do. Okay. So I have a game that I've been playing this for about 6 hours now. I have a game going, and I'm going to jump into it, and I'm going to try to explain what I've learned about the game thus far. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more of a comprehensive review, this is not it. But I will do my best to explain what I've learned about the game in my current time playing. Okay, so the game is currently paused, and as you might notice here, it's a bit of a colony management simulation. And maybe I should have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but that is largely what you'll be doing here, is managing this colony. So we have our little duplicates. What are they called? They're called duplitrons. No, they're called duplicants. Yeah, and they come out of this printing press right here. So after every certain amount of time, we'll say a new duplicant is available right now, as a matter of fact. So what we could do here, I'll go ahead and choose a new duplicant. And this is basically what you start the game with. When you are first starting a colony, the colony is randomly generated, obviously. So you're going to be starting on different terrain every time, but you'll be given the option to choose 3 duplicants that you start your colony with. In my case, I just went through random ones, but you can obviously, keep rolling the little die until you get the ones you're interested in. And they all have different traits. For example, this one has a lot of tinkering. This one has a lot of athletics. In general, it seems like athletics is the best just general trait because all of your duplicants actually have to do a lot of running around the place. So you really can't go bad or can't go wrong if you have a lot of athletics. This duplicant can't dig, though, which could be a bit of a problem. They have different sorts of responses to stress. When the stress level in the colony, or when their personal stress level raises too high, they will actually perform this reaction. For in this case, it's destructive. This one vomits. Okay, we got 2 vomitors and a destructive one here. I am thinking I'm going to go ahead and take the level 7 runner here. They have a reasonably high decor expectation of 10. So just click print, and as you can see, entering through the printing pod, just like that. So all of my other duplicants are running around doing various chores. You can pause the game by pressing spacebar, obviously. It gives you some time to analyze what you want to do next, which I think I'm going to do here because I want to explain some of the user interface and whatnot. Right here we have our current stress. Our highest stress is somebody named Neil. Give you nice little information there. We have our total number of population. the number of calories right there. Of course, you can speed up the game, fast speed, by pressing tab. The slow speed, by default, pressing space will pause and unpause the game, but you can press tab to increase the speed of it overall. I am somebody who generally plays on very slow speeds because I just like to micromanage things. The cycle is similar to the day and night cycle that you might be familiar with in Don't Starve. So this rotates around, and every time the little black area gets up to the top again, all of your duplicants will go to sleep for a short amount of time. That is basically why you need these beds and stuff. Over here we have the jobs that the duplicants are allowed to perform. So this might look similar to RimWorld if you've ever played RimWorld, which is, in a way, it's, RimWorld is another another colony management simulation, but it's significantly different. Like I would not feel comfortable comparing the two directly, but they do definitely share some concepts, which means that, if you've played RimWorld, you will probably be familiar with stuff like this, such as managing job prioritization. I currently just have all of my duplicants at their default, so they'll all perform all jobs because I don't think I have enough to really... I can still micromanage them. I can still micromanage them myself. That's a strange sentence that boggles me at the moment. Vitals gives you an overview of their health. Here we have the daily reports. I really want to actually be able to drag this one, but you can't. It looks like you should be able to drag it because it's got like a title bar and the little close button next to it, but I can't drag it. So we're currently on cycle 20, so that's like day 20. We can look through the various days back, and you can see just general stats about your colony, the amount of oxygen you generated. We have a net gain of 16 for cycle 17, net gain of 21 for cycle 18, 23 for yesterday, and 14 so far for today. For a lot of this time, I was actually in the negative for oxygen generation, but it wasn't to the point where any of my duplicants actually passed out from a lack of oxygen. We have power usage, power wasted, and a lot of that stuff is just, I don't find it all that useful. Here we have the research tree. As you might notice, this is a little bit sparse at the moment, and I'm hoping they'll add more researches as the game develops. Like, this is actually one of my primary concerns, is the game so far, I'm liking it a lot, but the one thing about it is it doesn't seem to have much of an end game. I can put 6 hours into this one colony already, and even with only like 6 or 7 duplicants, I managed to research a good deal of the tree already without running out of resources in any significant way. I might have just got a lucky roll here, and I think I did in some ways because everything is relatively safe. If we take a look here at the overlays, we can see how our oxygen is doing. A lot of oxygen down here where my algae plants are, and then some areas over here where downright no oxygen, you can't breathe there. Over here we can see that this water is contaminated water and contaminated oxygen above it. Up here we have some chlorine. It's also contaminated hydrogen over there. So there are a lot of dangerous gases that are surrounding my current colony that I didn't actually have to deal with, so I might have gotten the lucky roll here. This is my second colony. The first one, I really didn't understand what I was doing, so I probably restarted it after about 30 minutes. Here we have our power grid overlay. Obviously, how power works is you have little generators. Generators store electricity in these batteries, and then you connect it via this. It's like a Sim City kind of overlay for the power, and basically everything just hooks up and then it works. Over here we have the temperature overlay. One thing I've found is that plants, especially the ones you grow for food, are very sensitive to the amount of heat. Like, my duplicants really have no problem being in this very hot area right here, but when it comes to plants, they wilt, especially the bristle blossom. It wilts very easily if the temperature fluctuates too much, and I can't say whether or not heat rises to the top, but it seems like it does. But it could just be the fact that there seems to be like an upward flow from down below with my algae plants, which are producing oxygen. Here we have our light overlay. This basically shows what areas of my colony are lit. I could do better. I think that is pretty obvious from looking at this. I could do better, but so far my duplicant stress level is not excessively high, and that is really the only reason I can see to actually light up more areas. Here we have our liquid plumbing overlay. I started a liquid plumbing unit, and then I was like, I can't figure out a use for it. Apparently, it is possible to have your algae plants automatically watered with a liquid pump, so I might do that in the future. But at the moment, I didn't actually do anything with it. I did, however, and then we're moving over to the gas overlay now. I did play around with the gas a little bit. So we have a gas pump right down here, and the idea that I had was that it would pump the fresh, very, very breathable oxygen all the way up to some of the more closed off levels of my base here. Then we also have the decor level, and this shows basically what parts of your base your duplicants are actually going to be happy being in. Like as you can see down here where the algae plants are growing with where they produce oxygen, the duplicants do not like being there. Ladders also add a good deal of, I don't know if I would say unhappiness, but just low decor, like it's ugly. I guess that would be the better way to describe it. Whereas stuff like paintings or light, those things all add to the or like a statue as well, they add to the positive, the appeal of various rooms for your duplicants. And lastly, we have the priority overlay. If you've played RimWorld, you're probably quite familiar with how priority works. It's largely the same in this game. Priority 1 is the lowest, and then priority 9 is the highest, which means that your duplicants will prioritize tasks in that range. In other words, if something is set to 1, your duplicants are not going to be very inclined to do it. Okay, down here in the bottom of the screen, we have our various build menus, pretty much standard stuff. Like if you're familiar, once again, like I could keep comparing it to RimWorld because these things are sort of like that. There's a lot in common there. Just the user interface, I guess you could call it, has a lot in common with RimWorld, considering that is another sort of a colony management simulation. Okay, so let's get started here. Let's unpause and get going. I have a mechanical door built there that's not powered. I don't think it's supposed to open and close that quickly, so I suspect that might be a bug. What is going on here? Well, these two duplicants here and here are both working on research for my current project. We can take a look at research by clicking the button right up here, or we can also take a look at select research through the machine. I've been here before. A lot of these researches unlock very critical technologies that are used to, further expand your base into more dangerous areas. So far, I've only gotten into combat once, and when that happened, the duplicant, I was able to send him to a medical cot to heal. It was a very small injury. Over here, I think we have some duplicants gathering algae. Yeah, they're bringing it over here to feed the algae plants in the algae terrarium, which provides us with our oxygen. These duplicants right here are currently running on the treadmills, which produce power. It's charging up my batteries at the moment, and my batteries are running things such as the research stations when they're actively being researched, or my refrigerator, which is helping to keep my food that I built fresh, or my micro musher, which is essentially like the version of a stove in here. Here we have my dining area. This is where my duplicants go to eat. They're happier eating at tables, obviously, and you can assign a table to each of them. There goes one of them running around with some water, probably taking it down here to water algae, which is not very efficient considering he could just take the water from this basin right below it. There are different types of water, as I've mentioned before. Like this is all clean water, so I might actually be doing this the wrong way, and I might be able to use contaminated water for the algae, but at this point, I really haven't figured out the most efficient way yet. There are people who are obviously much more knowledgeable about the game than myself at this point. We can harvest plants. So here, this mealwood is ready for harvest, and you'll find out there is not a great variety of overall available food in this game. Basically, it's like one or two types. If we look at the what our oven is, whatever you want to call this, we have two recipes available to us, the mush bar and the lice loaf. The mush bar is generally just the bottom of the barrel. You're making it out of dirt and water, and it can give your duplicants diarrhea. So obviously that pretty much limits you to just the rice loaf at this point. All of my mealwood trees up here, or plants up here, are ready for harvesting, so I probably should do that. But at the moment, we're just going to look around the base a little bit more. Okay, so it's the end, towards the end of the cycle. As you can see, all the duplicants decided to run into their beds. This one here actually snores, which is the reason I have him isolated from the other one, so he doesn't disturb them in their sleep. There could be a case to be made for actually segmenting every single duplicant off into their own room, like RimWorld, but to date, I have not noticed them being upset about like disturbed sleep. If another duplicant runs in front of the rest of them while they're sleeping, it doesn't seem to bother them at all. And that might be something you've noticed, is that the game does not actually require you to sort of place any paths. Everything that all these units that you place down, your duplicants can actually walk in front of them. Here are some light bulbs up there. Not powered though. Here we have the lavatories, which are pretty interesting, I suppose. You can see there's a little bar next to it that tells you how many visits are remaining before it has to be plunged out. So it's got kind of like a little interesting visual cue right there. If you're wondering what that little meter on the right side of it is. We have our storage units. These are basically stockpiles, so you can store all the resources that are laying around on the ground there. And one of the main reasons, of course, that you want to make sure that you clean your floors is because it actually reduces the overall appeal of various areas of your base. So right now, okay, here we got some. We can clean up some of that right there. That's simply how you do it. You can also like vacuum up using the mop if your base gets wet. As a matter of fact, it is something that happened to me. This area up here, I accidentally let it go, and a whole reservoir of clean water flowed out down, and it started flowing into my base. But I managed to get out of control and redirect it down here, so it's all fine now for the most part. One of the things that you'll notice in this game is that resources are actually something of a luxury. You'll be running out of them continuously, and you'll have to advance to better technologies to be able to continue to produce the critical resources for your base, especially stuff like oxygen and water. Like I mentioned before, though, this mechanical door appears to have been bugged for me because it's acting as if it is powered when it is currently not. Like I don't have a wire connected to it. So you've seen pretty much a lot of this stuff, like the statues, they just add to the appeal. I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything I haven't really introduced you to yet. Right here is our compost. This is essentially what happens when the lavatories fill up and they need to be emptied. They're removed over here to the compost pit, and it will gradually, at the cost of clean air, convert it into fertilizer. Ladders are used for your duplicants to get around. They can just run up and down them. It's pretty simple. They can grab water from up to 2 tiles away, but even when standing on the ladder, so that's quite useful. You can plant plants in these planter boxes. You can build them through the food menu. And unfortunately, I don't have any seeds at the moment, but I could get more. I have a whole bunch of these planted all over the place, so I'm definitely not hurting for food. Like, if you take a look at my food situation right now, it's currently very good. And I'm continually making more. So at this point, the primary objective, I suppose, is to maybe finish all my research and then work on a more sustainable base. I guess that is one of my conclusions so far with the game that I feel about it, is that the end game is not all that strong. Like I've reached the point after 6 hours where I'm just not sure where I really am supposed to go from here. Is the general idea to explore more of the map, because there's a lot of dangerous stuff out here that I could explore. Not many enemies. Like I said, I've only had one encounter with an actual enemy so far, but there are a lot of different biomes, I guess they're called, similar to Don't Starve. Like right here we have obsidian, granite, all kinds, slime, clay, all kinds of resources that I currently haven't had access to, and it could actually expand my options. Like right now, if I want to build a tile, which is basically like what I use to make my floors, I have the option between rock and sandstone. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. Okay, sandstone gives a small bonus to decor. So I'm thinking, maybe there is with some of the other types of rocks, there's a bigger difference that I'm not aware of yet, and that would be the general modus operandi, is to actually go and continue to explore the map a bit more. Insufficient oxygen generation so far. It's probably because I added an additional duplicant. They'll generally do that. So like right here I said, you'll continually get new duplicants. You do not have to accept them, but my next duplicant is due in 207.60 seconds. For most of this game, I have not actually been accepting new duplicates, and while that may drag down my overall progress in base building, it requires a lot less resources when resources can be scarce at times. So that's always something to keep in mind, is that you can actually refuse to accept new duplicates into your base. So that is like my first impressions of Oxygen Not Included, also known as ONI. I hear a lot of people saying the abbreviation for Oxygen Not Included would be ONI. And so far it looks quite promising. Like what they have here is quite solid. I just like to see the end game fleshed out a little bit more, because I kind of get the feeling that I've reached a lot of what the game has to offer, and at this point my general direction would only be to further optimize my current systems. Like, I have seen all the systems, I feel like I have, and now I'm just focusing on optimizing them and continuing to explore the rest of this world, whether be it by want or necessity. Like, if I start running low on resources, I'll have to venture out further, and that will force me to get introduced to some of this more dangerous stuff. So, like, right at the moment, it seems like at the end, the game could use a little bit more direction, in my opinion. But other than that, I think it's a very strong entry so far, and it is significantly different in terms of base building. Probably the closest thing, like I've mentioned before, is RimWorld and Craft the World. Like, Craft the World had a very similar, like, side-scrolling setup that Oxygen Not Included has. And, some people might complain about making comparisons and say don't do it, but one of the best ways you can give people who haven't played the game yet sort of a general point of reference is by referencing other popular games that they might have played that this game is similar to. And I stress similar because there is a lot different here. I hope you found that at least a little bit informative. And if you're interested in buying Oxygen Not Included yourself, like I said, you're going to have to use the Steam widget that Klei has provided on the Steam forums or on the Klei Entertainment forums. So the link to that will be in the description below. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.